corp laws bring you the laws and policies which affect the corporates, threadbare for wide consumption by netizens. The complex legal metrics of corporate laws, IP laws, Competition Act, foreign exchange, regulatory structure, and capital market regulations affect multifarious stakeholders. It is not just knowing the headline that matters, but the substance and a comprehensive knowledge of economic issues and their influences. Our regular news coverage on developments in the corridors of power, first-hand reports and policy proposals, and interviews of those who influence the economy are all aimed at making you aware and equipped with the power of information and knowledge.
The Goods and Service Tax, or GST, is probably going to be reality from 1st of April 2017. The GST Council, the most important, most powerful federal body in the country today, as far as the finances or taxes are concerned, has met twice. And they have taken various vital decisions, and probably in the next meeting, which is probably on 18th and 19th of this month, and they will take many more decisions. Again, because the states have actually cooperated with the Union Finance Ministry to come to those conclusions. So what all things will be discussed in the next meeting and how the first two meetings have actually gone? We have with us a very informed finance minister from Kerala, Mr. Thomas Issac, and he is going to talk about the entire matrix of GST that is going to be implemented. Sir, welcome to the very special episode of Rubaru. So first and foremost thing, of course, as I talked about the GST Council that has met twice. So what was your experience? How it has kind of evolved because it's a new body, new structure, new institution. So how it has evolved, sir?
It's a good experience. The Union Finance Minister takes initiative, in fact, to have a consensus on issues,
Right, sir.
rather than division, which is very easy. Which I also think is tempered by the fact that central government require 19 states to support it if they have to carry a motion.
Right, sir.
That's not going to be very easy.
Correct, sir.
So, but it doesn't come to that at all. There's a very frank and free discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is no consensus, the issues refer to the next meeting.
Correct.
It's a good practice. I think through discussion, we'll be able to arrive at a common understanding.
So till date, in the first two meetings, have you seen any kind of, as you said that 19 states has to be, on the same board. Have you seen any kind of divergent views from any of the states to say, which is like more in number, and still it was deliberated and reached to conclusion to some extent? Was there any issue of that sort, sir?
Yeah, it's inevitable.
Right.
Central government and state governments have certain issues on which they are very differing
Sure.
opinions.
Sure.
For example,
Mm-hmm.
for calculation of compensation, what should be the projected rate of growth?
Correct, sir.
States would like to have a higher rate. Central would like to keep it down as possible. Okay.
Correct.
This might be an obvious case.
Correct.
Or central government has got an army of excise officials.
Right, sir.
State government has about 7 times more number with them.
Correct, sir.
And both of them would like to have a higher share of the cake.
Correct, sir.
Okay. So this is another issue.
Correct.
How do we actually administer the tax?
Okay.
These are mundane issues, but
Okay.
still, this will be an issue. There will be a conflict.
Correct, sir.
Major conflict is set to come regarding the rate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, between the states also, there are issues on which they would differ
Correct, sir.
significantly.
It's very unique because, I'm talking about 29 states plus union territories and a government ruled in the center, by a party which is like now growing in a very massive way. And this kind of cohesiveness, it's very rare to see amongst the political parties. So what has made this possible? Is it the finance minister
this
or?
empowered committee of finance ministers
Right, sir.
have been functioning for more than 1 decade now.
Correct, sir.
And that didn't have statutory power and this kind of precise laws how which voting is to be done, etc. But never in its history has there been an instance of voting.
Okay.
So I think very powerful tradition of a board committee, which is a consensual approach,
Correct.
which has had hundreds of meetings already. That tradition has continued. That's very important. That's the most important factor. Secondly, even if Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, personalities also matter. Okay,
Correct.
How you deal with an issue.
Right.
You can be bureaucratic, but he has been managing it well.
Correct, sir.
Initially, when I looked at the rules of procedure, etc., I had certain misgivings.
Correct.
But as I doubted, it must have been the drafting problem of the bureaucrats.
So now coming to the point that you referred to is the tax rates. Probably that is going to be one of the massive kind of contentious issue that is going to be debated very fiercely between states and probably also the center. And as you said, the center would like to have a higher tax rate and the states will like to have lower tax rates. But just as a layman, as a common man, if I want to see this, that when the center is going to compensate the states 100%, so why there would be a difference of opinion between state and
because after 5 years we'll be forced to swim on our own.
Right.
And secondly, state like Kerala, where I come from,
right, sir.
We have a very different development agenda.
Right, sir.
And we are not going to be satisfied with 10% growth of the revenues.
Right, sir.
Our target is 20% growth.
Sure.
Without that, our fiscal consolidation will become a mirage.
Okay.
Therefore, I am interested in having a greater buoyancy of revenue.
Sure, sir.
Now, the whole debate has revolved around what is a revenue neutral rate.
Correct, sir.
There is no earthly way of arriving at a number because based upon your assumptions of the tax base and two, the efficiency of tax collection, based upon these assumptions, the figures change, vary from 12% to 24%. These are made by competent people.
Correct, sir.
And therefore, instead of beating about the bush about this revenue neutral rate, it may be more practical way to move to a structural rate.
Right, sir.
Keeping in mind what was the structure, what is the existing structure.
What according to you could be that?
Well, I am totally against. You see, there is a dominant view is that larger number of rates would make the GST complicated.
Correct.
And therefore, ideal would be one rate,
right,
which
sir.
is impossible. Say, Sir Arvind Subramaniam has thrown his weight around two-rate structure.
Two-tier, yes, sir.
With one or two outliers,
right,
demerit goods. And
correct, sir.
But I am against that.
Okay.
The reason is this, that tax structure would be highly regressive.
Correct, sir.
Let me put it very simple way. SUVs, cars,
right,
now suffer a tax rate of 48%.
Sure, sir.
48.5, 34 excise and 14.5 VAT.
VAT, yes, sir.
Plus, you can add if you want a portion of the service tax.
Right, sir.
But even forgetting there is 48.5.
Sure.
How can it be reduced to 18%?
Correct, sir.
Now, what rationality?
Right.
All the consumer durables today suffer a rate above 30.
Right, sir.
Or around 30. How do you bring it down to 18? Because today textiles are not taxed. And this is also going to be 18.
Sure.
Only they say 12.5 excise. But VAT is zero rated in most of the states.
Right, sir.
So you find today's the tax structure is that the necessities of life, grains and so on, either exempted or taxed at a low rate of 4.
Right, sir.
Now, you can't hike it to even the 12% which Arvind Subramanian says,
right,
and reduce the consumer durables and luxuries to 18%.
Right.
See, therefore, there is a great inequity involved.
Right.
People have not given thought to this.
Sure,
and I think people at large are totally unaware of what is happening. The moment this comes to the limelight, I think there will be a political price to be paid.
Sure.
This shows the total stupidity of Congress attempt to put a ceiling at 18. You see, I would say all consumer durables, luxuries should be taxed at a higher rate of, I would put 30 to 35 anywhere.
Okay, so when
And then
Yes, sir.
necessities, bring it to 4 to 6.
Right, sir.
Okay, then you have an intermediate standard rate of 18 to 20.
Sure.
That will be more equitous. Otherwise, the tax will become very regressive compared to the existing tax structure.
Okay. So now coming to the other point of probably what we call as dispute resolution mechanism. So there's a provision of resolving the dispute between state and center, and between two states, and between more than one state and center, and so forth and so on. So what is the mechanism that is going to kind of play the role in the GST Council?
Once basic structure is made, the disputes will be technical in nature.
Sure.
Where does this commodity belong to? Which trade structure? Some state has taken some measure which is not within the framework. So you can have an attempt to have a consensus in the GST Council, and if not, there should be a technical committee to arbitrate,
Correct,
which
sir.
will be set up by GST Council.
Sure, sir.
Now, there has to be compromises.
Sure, sir.
Let me tell you a great deadlock which occurred in the last meeting.
Sure, sir.
Now, central government excise does not extend below 1.5 crores or
Sure, sir.
rupees turnover. So that was agreed. Okay, central government and state government will concurrently, through some mechanism of dual empowerment, mutual empowerment, collect the tax. Only one person will be dealing, but we will divide the dealers or taxpayers
Sure,
between
sir.
us. Below 1.5, states will collect, because only state can go
Correct,
to that
sir.
small,
Correct, sir.
and state has a manpower. Central officials want entire service sector to be left to them.
Correct. So that was the dispute, yes.
But that state is not acceptable to the states. Once this division between goods and services disappears with GST, that's what's supposed to happen.
Sure.
But nevertheless, okay, you can have some distinction. But there are deemed goods, like works contract and so on, which states are administering, which I think the excise people have no idea of.
Sure.
They should remain, these services should remain with the states. Secondly, there are composite taxpayers. A car dealer, he has service tax, but he has also
Good, sir.
and he cannot be taken to service sector. On the hand, fairly one should look what is the major tax service of this. If it is commodity tax, it should remain with the states.
Sure.
Okay, this new entrance into the tax net, states can directly collect them. And finally, there must be a time period that is agreed upon. Within 1 year,
Sure.
there will be a review and see how states, how competent are the state to the service tax and extend their net. Okay, regarding the first three I mentioned, the composite taxpayers, the deemed goods,
Correct, sir.
and new taxpayers, it should be possible to reach an agreement. I don't know
Sure.
how rationally one can reject it.
Sure, sir.
I think Union Finance Minister, unlike his officials, was very receptive to this idea. So states would like to have a number of the service dealers, but I think eventually you'll have to make a...
So you are saying the officials in the central government is not that receptive to those new ideas?
Well, they have their bureaucratic empire to mind about.
Sure.
Very frankly telling.
Sure,
Otherwise, I don't understand how they can claim they will look after the entire service sector.
Correct,
and
sir.
say even deemed goods they will take.
Correct.
So that's not all mandated by larger national interest and so on, but departmental interest. The state government officials also have their departmental interest.
Sure.
You have reports saying that state government tax people are going on strike and rolling their protest and so on.
Correct, sir. All right, sir. So now coming, you said that there'll be a arbitration committee, technical committee. Then there'll be various mechanisms to kind of, and you said that there'll be consensus over the period of time, and there'll be review after every 1 year. So these things, let's say, agreed upon. So in the next meeting, apart from the tax rate, what do you see in the GST Council meeting? I'm saying, what do you see that which should be discussed and finalized as soon as possible, so that the next step of GST implementation should be expedited?
The most important is to have the say compensation, projection of revenues.
Okay.
I'm saying I don't want the cherry picking. Okay, fine. I would have said, just like in VAT, best 3 years or last 5 years. That is VAT.
Right.
Use the same formula. But central government thinks that will be too high a rate. Therefore, they want to have lower rate. Therefore, choosing just last 3 years, which are really bad years.
Sure.
So let's not cherry pick. I'll say, let's have a 10-year growth rate calculator. There are so many econometric simple models. Do it for all the states.
So any signal that you are getting?
That's it. I think. But once you have crossed this hump, then everybody is comfortable. I mean, okay, you can compromise on that, on this.
So are the majority of states agreeable to this idea, sir?
I don't think majority of states have really applied their mind to this. They all demand best 3 out of 5.
Sure, sir. So now coming to the powers of state. Of course, you have been kind of cooperating, but as GST will subsume most of the taxes, so there's a thing or saying that state will lose out every power to collect revenue. How far it is true? And secondly, for things like, let's say, for example, Kerala has imposed a fat tax recently. Then there's a tax on PET, plastic and whatever. I mean, those things you have put. So will you be able to tax on these kind of on an ad hoc nature to kind of just to discourage something?
Sadly, the negative aspect of GST is even de jure the powers of state to have any independent taxation powers are gone.
Right.
I didn't mourn that very much because when VAT was introduced, you already lost that power substantially.
Correct, sir.
You cannot go too much out of the line.
Sure, sir.
But today, even by law, we don't have that powers. So much so, suppose I want to estimate tax fat.
Sure.
Fat tax. Well, unless I am given some option of putting it into the higher bracket, say demerit goods, then environment-friendly goods, and some of this fat stuff, however defined, there should be an option given. Otherwise, it will be straitjacketing the whole thing, which I don't think is very interesting. Because SGST, it shouldn't bother anybody at what rate I tax within my state.
Sure, sir.
Because that has no interstate implication. If at all anything, I am putting a higher tax, my trade should flow out.
Sure.
So, there should be some sphere of maneuverability.
Sure.
So, states have lost all the taxation powers, but it has won the right to tax service. Okay.
Correct.
It was early denied. But once you move to VAT, it is almost fait accompli.
Okay.
Because if you move to VAT, you better go the whole hog.
Right, sir.
And have from the manufacturing for interstate, you don't draw your border.
Sure.
So anyway, this has become a fact.
Sure, sir. Now, the last portion is how prepared is Kerala to roll out GST, and what about the GSTN, the technical part and the technical IT infrastructure for rolling out GST?
We are prepared. We have very robust IT infrastructure. Now there is complete e-filing, downloading of various statutory forms, online payment.
Sure, sir.
Now we have also now introduced system scrutiny of web thing. And by January, we are going to have a law which says that you have to upload and real-time basis all the bills, invoices that you have.
Sure, sir.
You are writing a bill in the shop, it will come immediately.
Correct, sir.
So we are IT preparedness is very good. Now, we are going to have a big campaign using the colleges. Kerala is fortunate that way. You have a large network of colleges,
Right, sir.
the staff and so on, to educate the
Sure,
merchants and dealers. So that campaign is going to start. And we are also started training of our officers.
Officers, yes, sir.
And I think this time period is enough. And don't want to collect any compensation from the year one.
Okay.
We hope to do better.
Sure, sir. And how about the central GSTN we are talking about? How prepare? I mean, was it discussed in the council? And the preparedness of GSTN is there?
GSTN, really, I cannot vouch for that. I hope we have last council, we demanded pilot testing of it.
I see.
With involvement of the states.
Okay.
We want to see how it is working out. They claim they are ready.
Okay.
But we do not know.
Correct, sir. I'm afraid, sir, that's the time we have right now. I mean, I can go on, and it's a very interesting discussion that we are having. But I would like to kind of request you that after the next GST Council meeting, we would like to catch up with you once again, sir. And very thank you for joining us in the Rubaru special episode of Rubaru, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.